All right, so the first time I did the Q&A, I left a lot of questions on the table, basically. I didn't get nowhere near to all the questions, so I've got a bit of free time now, so I'm going to just continue on the list and answer, a bunch more. Hopefully I can get through a lot more. So Jordan Grist says, what did you study at school and how has those subjects affected your life? Well, in high school, man, I wasn't really a good student. In high school, I was convinced I was going to go to the NBA and play basketball. So I didn't really focus on studies at all. And then I think somehow I got into university and started studying nursing, and that really kind of changed my life, really. I was quite immature before that. I remember my first placement in nursing, man. I was a kid that kind of was into cars back then. I had 2 subwoofers in the in the boot, and I was all about doing up the car and that kind of thing. That was kind of a description of where my mind was at that moment. All I wanted to do was just play basketball and think about cars. And then my first placement, part of the course in nursing, I went to a palliative ward, and there I met a guy in his 30s who was probably in the early 40s, who was dying of cancer, lung cancer. I rocked up to the shift. This is my first kind of clinical exposure. Rocked up to the shift, and one of the nurses said, "Oh, can you answer that call bell?" So I popped in the room, and this young kid came into the room and basically was exposed to something very serious. There's no subwoofers here. There's no dreams here. This is just utter reality. The fella in the bed basically was like huffing and puffing in bed, and he wanted to use the commode. He wanted to go to the toilet. And so I got him the commode chair and I put it next to him, helped him get up, and just the effort of sitting up in bed absolutely exhausted him. He was huffing and puffing as if I went for a 100-meter all-out sprint. That was his work of breathing. Nursing has had an incredible impact in my life. I never kind of really wanted to be a nurse as growing up, but I just kind of fell into it because my scores weren't good to do anything else. Like I wanted physiotherapy, I wanted to study human movement, and I could never really get into it. So I started the first year nursing, with the hope of transferring out of that course and into something that I liked. And then I went to this placement, and that kind of just grabbed me, and I thought it was an incredible opportunity to help people out in those type of circumstances. And that was basically it, like year after year after year, 10 years in now, 11 years, this is the 11th year of nursing. It just kind of it feels good to be, in the game where you help people. You go home not with just, some money in your pocket, but you also, you go home with this idea that you've helped somebody, in a meaningful way. So it's, I guess your question was relating to school, but, and the subjects, but for me, my career changed my life, basically. Connor Hayes says, tell us about your basketball career and who in your opinion is the GOAT. My basketball career, basically, I mentioned in the last video, I started playing after watching my brother play basketball. We came from Yugoslavia, and we played soccer over there. We came here and started playing basketball because of the sun's too hard out here. So they said. So we started playing indoor sports, and the indoor sport was basketball. The highest level I ever got was the reserves team of the first league, local league here, men's team. So I guess after that first team, the next progression is the national league. So I was kind of like third, if you will, league from the national. So not very high at all. Like I was okay as a junior. Then I got to the reserves, and then I started rubbing shoulders with people who could really, really play. Big guys who could shoot. Experienced guys who played state all the way, basically from under 12s, under 14s, kind of thing. And when I turned 20, I kind of knew that I wasn't going to be good. If at 20 years old you're not really discovered to be something, especially in Australia, I just thought I'd focus my attention on something else, because I gave it a good old go. I thought I trained hard and all of that, and then when you get to a certain level, you realize what hard work really is and what guys are really doing. So I just figured, at 20 years old, I'm in Australia, no one knows about me, there's no way I'm going to make the NBA. And so I started focusing on nursing. Who is the GOAT? In my opinion, it's very simple, man. Michael Jordan is the GOAT. I know, younger guys who are like in the early 20s who haven't seen Michael Jordan play, you probably say LeBron. But what Jordan did in what era he did, I think he's the GOAT. He was a different time, obviously. Now LeBron plays in a league where there's a lot more possessions per game, and so all the statistics are inflated. There's no physicality in the game. As Stephen A. Smith says, you pass gas, and it's a foul. Jordan played against true bigs, if you will. Mutombo, Karl Malone, Ewing, David Robinson, like these guys who protected the paint. LeBron is a big guy, and there's really nobody waiting for him. There's Draymond Green, who's a 6'8". I don't know what he plays, power forward, center. So it's a different league, and the fact that all the stats are inflated kind of makes him more kind of, if you will, likely to be the GOAT. The winning is another thing. Jordan won a lot, and LeBron has won, but he's lost a lot. And you can make the argument that LeBron has, gotten into a position to lose. He's taken some of his, I guess, subpar teams all the way to the finals and lost. LeBron is a incredible basketball player, and I put him number second as the second best basketball player. But with these type of conversations, it's really hard because I wasn't exposed to Bill Russell. I wasn't exposed to some of these guys back in the day. Will Chamberlain. Like, what are we talking about? I know back then basketball wasn't as professional as it is now. A lot of those guys had second jobs. But in my eyes, what Jordan did to the game, how he basically made it, forefront of all sports in a way. He was the first basketball player that I ever knew about, and he basically made me play basketball. I guess it's one of those things that it's your opinion really, and that I'm giving you my opinion. I just feel like Jordan was just a force like no other. Whereas LeBron, I guess it comes down. LeBron has kind of, not weaseled out, but his not taking some of those crunch moments, opportunities by himself. He's kind of passed out, like the Curry shot against Golden State. He always kind of relies on somebody else to close. And for me, if you're going to be the greatest of all time, you should be the best closer. LeBron is a better playmaker, but closing is important. A couple of questions here. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm just you're putting love hearts next to all the questions that I've already answered. So if I go all the way down, how much sleep do you usually get each night? Sabil Kuram asks, oh man, it varies between 5 and 8 hours basically. When I'm doing 12-hour shifts, several in a row, my kind of routine is kind of 5 hours, 6 hours, it depends. Because the squat every day, I need to kind of get up and spend an hour and a half, 2 hours to train, and I work 12 hours, so I'm on duty for 12 hours, 12 and a half really. By the time I get home, it's like 13 and a half. So, I can't really afford to sleep all that much time and still get everything else done. So that's kind of where I vary. With 8 hours, I feel unbelievable. I feel ready to tackle the world on 8 hours. Drop table users object asks, have you ever considered doing knee and hamstring strengthening, naughty curls, split squats, Romanian deadlifts, etc.? Could help strengthen your squat max. Yeah, I mean all these questions, all these kind of points have been kind of in my comments for some time now. Look, I think naughty ham curl is one of those things that keeps coming up on the comment sections. So in my opinion, man, even though Nordic ham curls hit the hamstring, obviously really, really hard, I feel number one, it's a very, very advanced exercise, and most people, including me, can't do a concentric rep. So you're just basically limited to doing eccentrics. That's one thing. The second thing is, this exercise is purely knee flexion. Even though your glute is activated, it doesn't have a lot of hip extension involvement at all. And I feel squatting is about hip extension more than knee flexion. So the hamstring does two things, right? You can extend the hip, some of them, and all of them can flex the knee. I want to train the hamstring in a way where I'm extending the hip. That's what I need out of squatting. If you are a field athlete and you're doing a lot of sprinting and changing direction, I can see where Nordic ham curls come into play. But from all the kind of accessories out there for the lower body that I could do, I'm always going to go down the line of hip extension. So stuff like Romanian deadlifts, hell yeah, I want to do that way before Nordic ham curls. Split squats, I guess, strengthens the knee in a way, hits the quad and the glute quite a lot, glute medius in particular. The trouble with split squats, I feel like, is I prefer walking lunges. Split squats kind of, to me, are awkward, and I understand why you would want to do split squats, so you can load it easier than walking lunges. I just feel like heavy loading of a unilateral leg exercise could be very dangerous because of the SI joint. If you think about the anatomy of the body, you got the sacrum, you got the iliac, and so the sacroiliac joint, there's a twisting force if you load unilaterally hips, and the SI joint is designed to move a little bit. If you put a lot of force through it, maybe too much torque, too much twisting in that region, and once you screw up your SI joint once, it's basically with you for a long time. So I don't like loading unilateral leg work very much at all. That's why I like kind of body weight exercises, walking lunges. It's your body. It's a natural kind of movement. That's what I would kind of opt out for. Cast de Jong, he asks about Doug. We've already done that. Kyle Broom goes, what is your favorite kind of cardio workout? I wonder whether you feel like your running ability, average speed has improved since you started squatting every day. Also curious to know what your vertical jump height is. About the vertical, man, I'm not sure. I never really tested it out. Like I said in the previous video, the rim was here. At my peak, I guess, leaping ability. In terms of cardio, I don't really do a lot of traditional cardio. I don't like steady state cardio. Man, if you take a barbell and you run it for 100 reps, you're going to be pretty huffing and puffing. If you do the pig squat, you're going to be huffing and puffing. So the overall kind of thing with me, it's always going to be about specificity. I want to be a weightlifter. I want to be able to squat well. Going for runs doesn't really make sense to me. I have had a go at it, I guess a month ago now, but that was purely for the purpose of hitting the calves. That was what I was thinking. I want to hit the calves and improve that dorsiflexion. That's kind of where my mind was. Obviously, cardio is never going to hurt. It's just you can attain cardio through the means of whatever you're doing. That's kind of where I stand on that. I grew up 10 years, from the age of 9 or 10 when I started playing basketball all the way to 20. All I did was cardio, running on sand dunes, running on the beach, just doing like 10, 15, 20 Ks every week of running, jogging. I did all of that. That was kind of my developmental years, man. I just ran. So I know what it is, and I guess now I'm kind of flipped to the other side where I don't do any cardio. But I'm huffing and puffing a lot when I do some of these reps, and I'm doing a lot of them now because I'm doing high reps. So that's that. Wombat goes, I have zero dorsiflexion. How do I start to improve that? My hips have come a long way. I can get ATG, but only with raised heels. Man, this is a very, very common problem. In fact, this problem is probably the most common when it comes to squatting. This is the number one limiting factor for everyone. So I've always said that, squatting seems like when somebody else does it like a simple thing, but there's a lot of stuff going on. I've spent a lot of time hitting the ankles, hitting the Achilles and the calf complex directly. For me, it's never worked, never stuck around. But every single time I've kind of addressed glute hamstring kind of length, adductor length, my squatting, like my dorsiflexion improved. So I've said this a lot, and I feel like a broken record, is just do more length and strength in the hips. Get your adductors longer, your hamstring longer, your glutes longer, and you'll see you start squatting better. You start squatting with your knees a little bit over your toes. Even when you see the Chinese weightlifters lift, a lot of them, this is where limb proportions are all kind of like make it really confusing. If you see a lot of people squat, their knees don't actually go too far over their toes. Because if your knees go too far over your toes, that's not a really strong, the strongest position to be in. So it's kind of like, it's really hard to tell sometimes, but you can achieve a kind of upright squat just if you just address the hips. So I would say concentrate more on the hips. The dorsiflexion is like a symptom. It's a symptom. Don't treat the symptom, treat the cause. The hip is the number one thing that should be concerning you to become a better squatter. Don't just think, the easiest fix is to just elevate your heels on, like with squat shoes, or even squat shoes and some plates underneath. All of a sudden you got squat mobility. But you're not gonna progress like that. You need to just concentrate on the hips. That's what I would say. And just ATG, like even if you just spend some time in the squat position with your heels raised as body weight, keeping your torso upright, just sit there for 10 minutes. Something is happening. Muscles are releasing, just spend more time there. That's what I would do. I've answered that question. Let's go all the ones I haven't. SS goes, advice for taller squatters in terms of cue and foot placement, etc. And what is your thoughts about the laws of accommodating resistance and fatigue management? So taller lifters, taller squatters, obviously, I guess when you're saying tall lifters, tall squatters, you're thinking about just general longer limbs. I've seen people, in fact, yesterday I saw, a family member of mine who is 192, 91 centimeters, squats ass to grass, perfectly, upright back, comfortably, flat feet. He's a lot taller than me. His wingspan is a lot taller than me. His limbs look just taller, longer. So his background is that he was a cyclist. Used to ride 100 Ks every weekend. He's very supple. He doesn't stretch, but he has very long joints. Like his joints are very, very healthy. This is a guy that's had both ACLs repaired. So being tall doesn't necessarily mean you can't squat. In fact, I remember seeing a video of Dennis Rodman, who's 6'8", 6'9", squatting ATG on the court. This is a big dude. So if you are like a Sudanese fella, and I've seen Sudanese, they have really, really long legs. Obviously, if you're that kind of proportion, you're going to have a very, very difficult time to getting in. But the way I think about this stuff is if you look at the human body and you strip everything back and all that's left is just bones. And I don't know if you've ever been like, studied nursing, so I've seen plenty of skeleton models. If you take the hip, the femur and the tibia, and you pull it up and around, whatever, you can get that skeleton to squat ATG perfectly. So I always think to myself, it's the soft tissue, it's the connective tissue, it's the muscles that are tight around some of these joints that are preventing us from getting into those positions. So the same things apply for a tall lifter. You can still get there, you just need to address more mobility. You have to address more mobility. It's kind of like bodybuilding. Like for a really tall guy, it's really hard to kind of fill out, but once you fill out a big frame, you look 10 times more impressive than a little guy. So it's kind of like, think about it like that. You just need to spend a lot of time in the kind of ATG position, spreading your hips, making sure your hips are long and strong. That's what I would say. So don't get discouraged because you're tall, you can't do anything. I've certainly seen many examples in my life of taller guys who can really get into a squat position better than me, and I'm 184 centimeters. So, my family member's like 7 centimeters taller than me and has longer, limbs, and he does a better squat than me. So, same things apply. Thoughts about laws of accommodating resistance? I guess what you're talking about there is, bands and chains and things like that, accommodating resistance. No, I have very limited experience on that. I've watched a lot of Louis Simmons's podcasts, all those interviews that he's had on the channel. I've never really used that stuff, but I guess it makes sense and probably improves, performance. Louis talked about, like on speed days going against, some bands and things. I just don't have a lot of experience with that. And fatigue management, that's a big part of my training, auto regulation. So if I come in and I warm up and I feel flat, then I just basically adjust my top set and adjust my volume from there. I don't go, hard-headed into a brick wall thinking I need to get these numbers. This is the number one reason why I do what I do. I like auto regulation. My life, I'm a nurse, night shifts, day shifts, all over the place, rotating roster. I can't have a rigid program. It just doesn't work for me. I need to have something that kind of works with me. So fatigue management is purely auto regulation. What do you think the benefits of squatting every day is? And any plans on how long you will keep squatting every day? How long I'll be squatting every day, I'm not sure. I'm still having fun, still learning a lot, still enjoying the process of just kind of working out the best way, the best approach. So I don't know when the end kind of goal is here. Is just continue to get stronger. The benefits of squatting every day, man, there's a lot of them. Number one, I already mentioned, it's easy to kind of superimpose that kind of program onto my life, because my life is not fixed. It's always kind of variable based on the roster and whatnot. The second thing that comes to my mind is technical proficiency. You're going to become a master of squatting. Your body's going to become very, very accustomed to getting to those positions. 3, flexibility, mobility, if you will. I don't stretch. A lot of you guys say, man, you must stretch a lot. How did you get to those positions? If you squat every day, if you do something every day, your body just basically assumes the position that you want to do every day. 4, probably just feel like a badass, man. If I get up early in the morning and I do squatting every day, like I mentioned in the last video, everything else in the day just becomes peanuts. It becomes really easy for me to get around. There's a lot more to it, but those are the kind of the big ones. So that's that one. How do you feel about translating squatting every day into sports and athletic performance? Man, that's a really good question. A few of you guys have asked me this over the time. It makes me think, if when I was playing basketball, would I run this? I would try, definitely, but I would make sure that I auto-regulate even better, because when you've got, like, I trained twice a week with the club, and then I had 1 game a week, and then later on it became 3 sessions, 3 training sessions. So I was quite busy with just playing basketball. So if you threw squatting every day in there, you would have to accommodate, you would have to kind of manipulate your training volume with that in mind. You're already having a lot of exertion throughout the week. So maybe instead of going for like a maximum training max, you go kind of a little lower, and then you reduce the volume. But definitely, squatting every day could kind of be implemented. I think I'm much more explosive now, much more explosive. I have a lot of more horsepower underneath me. If I was playing basketball, I'd probably be dunking. If I was practicing jumping, leaping, all that stuff. It's just my joints are so deconditioned to that kind of elastic kind of property, that right now, if I just started playing basketball after not playing for 5 years, the chance of risk is very, very high. Because my mind up here kind of knows what it wants to do in terms of, like, how to move and what to do on the basketball court. But my body's not conditioned to do that yet. But definitely, I would definitely try to do it. And just ease into it, man, ease into it. If you've got like a tough training session, the consecutive, weight session will be a lot less. You just kind of work with it. Auto regulation is the king, man. If you master that, man, you're going to go a long way. How often do you work out your upper body? I reckon I did that yesterday or day before. Mosonimo says, what does it feel like to be an absolute legend? Thanks, man. I don't know, man. It's kind of hard work, really. James, do you have a specific goal for SBD that you are working towards, and are you planning on cutting to see how shredded you would look? I don't do bulking, cutting at all. I don't see the purpose of it. I think a lot of guys think that you bulk up and you add some muscle, and then you cut, and then you hope for that muscle to stay around, but the fat melts away and you have this thing. That whole cycle to me doesn't make sense. It is very, very hard for you to be natural and sub 10% body fat and have good amount of muscle mass and low body fat percentage. Those two things don't go hand in hand. If you're a natural, if you're bulking and cutting your own gear, that's a different thing. That's a completely different thing. But if you're a natural, there's no point bulking and cutting, in my opinion. And I'm not a bodybuilder by any means. I'm not an expert on this field. It just makes no sense to me. Because when you go into a caloric deficit, you're not just losing body fat, you're also losing muscle mass, because you can't sustain that. People think that your body just goes into one fuel source. It doesn't, especially if you're training. You can't be bulk up to 100 kilos like me, for instance, and then shred down to 80 and keep all the muscle mass that I had at 100. It's impossible. It's impossible. The body doesn't work like that. But if you're throwing some more testosterone into the mix, then maybe you can retain some of that muscle. In terms of what are the goals, well, 300 squat, 180 bench, 300 deadlift is kind of my all-time goal. I'd love to achieve that. A lot of you guys have said to me that it's impossible to squat 300 as a natural, that it's basically unattainable. At my body weight, 94 kilos. I was actually just replying to a comment last night about that. Maybe it is, but I've seen lots of different guys, like Tim Tao, I think that's how you say it. Lou can squat 300. Jin Yun Lu, Klokov. There's a number of other guys, even like in the 80 kilo class, who can do it. This is just weightlifters, and I've seen countless powerlifters do it at my body weight. Russell Orihi, like he squatted, I think 320 in competition. At my body weight, I think it's my body weight, 93 kilos. Are these people natural? I don't know, man. I don't know. For the longest time I thought Clarence Kennedy was natural. It was only a few weeks ago that I heard him say, no, he wasn't natural. And I know he looked jacked as hell, a few years ago when he put all that weight on. I guess I just think the best of people. Like I don't like thinking someone's on gear or whatever. If somebody's saying to me they're not on gear and they look kind of like semi-decent, I believe them. Maybe I'm gullible like that. I don't know. Is it attainable 300 kilo squat at 94, 95 kilo body weight? I'm not sure, but I'm not going to put on 120, 130 kilos to squat 300. That's not an option for me. I'm not crazy like that for that goal. It has to be at a healthy weight and see what I can get to. I think I can get close, at least. I'm pretty confident with that. Rob says, we'll go into weightlifting. I think I answered that in the previous one, but basically it was basketball. Basketball got me in because I wanted to become better at running and sprinting and jumping. So I went to the gym for that, and then as basketball kind of left my life, the weightlifting kind of picked up and filled that hole for me. Yako says, hey mate, any tips on getting the weight training in when you're feeling fatigued from work? My lower back is often fried as I work on the roof. Oh man, you're a roofer. Luckily, my job is more mental than physical. So for me, when I come into, if I'm training after work, which doesn't happen often, I usually train beforehand, and maybe that's a tip for you. Get up earlier, train, and then go to work. But if I have to train afterwards, I just basically think to myself, let's just warm up. Just warm up. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking I need to hit 190 kilos today, 180 kilos today. I'm thinking to myself, let's just get under the bar. Let's do like 5 sets or whatever. And just see where I end up, see how I feel. And oftentimes, when you warm up, everything feels better. You start feeling mentally better, you start feeling fresher, and then you end up doing whatever you were going to do anyway. But just every single day I come in and I'm like, let's just warm up. Just let's get the blood temperature up and see what's up. And from there you can gauge where you are. That's what I would recommend. But if you can, train before work, especially as a roofer, man. Like if your lower back is fatigued, there's not much you can do in the weight room if you're completely fried before you even started. Bruno Beber says, what is your past fitness experience? I know you played basketball, but did you also bodybuild, kettlebell, if that is a word, etc.? So I played basketball, and then kind of when I gave up basketball for the first kind of 2 or 3 years in the gym, I just basically did the bro split like everyone else. That was my first exposure. That's what basically 99% of people in the gym do anyway. So I went in, biceps, back and biceps, chest and triceps, legs and shoulders, and then, abs, whatever. Whenever I did that, there was so many different splits. So I did that. I got kind of alright. Like I went from like about 80 kilos to 86 or 7, something like this, just bodybuilding. And then it all turned for me when I saw a powerlifter in the gym move an incredible amount of weight off the floor. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool thing. Here's a guy who's actually training for performance. And I was kind of missing that from the training I was doing. And so that kind of made me wonder, could I actually move this weight without hurting my back? And then I started looking into more powerlifting, and then started reading, and that's kind of how I got around to it. N24 Revision 12 says, you did a Grease the Groove push-up series a while ago. Have you ever thought of picking that back up, or is there simply not enough time every day? I have thought about that. Thought about it a whole lot actually. Greasing the groove is something that's very intriguing to me intellectually. It is something that I recommend to people all the time. If somebody's going into, first kind of thinking about going into training, and they haven't trained at all, what I tend to preach is the grease and the groove method. Oftentimes people have, they're motivated to start training, change their body or whatever, and they're going in the gym and they spend the first week absolutely hammering themselves, absolutely smashing themselves. And that DOMS feeling, that pain and agony that people get to when they're just working so hard, puts people off from coming back. So what I tend to teach people is that if you're new to the gym, grease the groove. Grease the groove. And now initially they're like, I'm not even doing anything here. Why am I wasting my time? But greasing the groove is like such an effective way of getting where you want to go. Because number one, it introduces you to whatever lifestyle you want, training, introduces you without the DOMs and without all the other crap. You don't have to go to the gym to do it. You don't need equipment. I was telling my friend, just start with push-ups, man. Get down, do your max. 3-4 days later, when all the stuff is kind of completely gone, all the soreness is gone, start working with 36% of that every single day, a couple of times a day. And then when people get bitten by that gains bug, when you start feeling your push-ups are going up and up and up and up, that's when motivation really comes in. The true bug of gains, that's what keeps people coming back. But if you train for 6 months and you don't see any gains, you see any progress, and you're working so hard and you're just falling apart, everything's hurting all the time, then you're not going to be so motivated. But if you are greasing the groove and you're seeing results and you're not feeling like you're working really hard, then you're going to want to work hard even more. So greasing the groove to me is just like one of the most coolest methods around. And when I was greasing the groove with the push-ups, that's when I hit 140 kilo bench press. If I did it again, I would change some things. I think I pushed too hard. I didn't give it enough time. And I kind of went away from, I guess, some of the cornerstones of that thing, which is you can't really get a pump when you're training, man. And I was getting pumps, So eventually I want to get back to it. I just want to, right now my priority is just to get the squat moving. If I can get the squat moving, work out some sort of like way, hip pain is gone, so thank God for that. And now I feel like I can get the squat moving. When that starts moving, then I'm going to start thinking more and more about the bench press and how I can attack that. And maybe that's when I throw in GTG, grease the groove. But I love that method, man. Jeremy Clarkson goes, Jeremy Clarkson. Hey man, love the content, daily watcher here. Respect, man. Thank you. Have you ever considered doing ollie lifting? Also, will we ever see Clarence Kennedy level squat strength from Ivan? Oh man. Dude, Clarence Kennedy, man, was the first guy that just basically made me go, oh, what the hell is that? Pausing 300 kilos. Man, when I watched that video like a million times, I think. I hope I can get 300 kilos. I hope. Was Clarence natural when he did that? I'm not sure. I've seen Clarence squat 260, 270 as a freaking teenager. Lighter than me. I'm pretty sure he was clean then. So, I'm pretty sure 300 kilos is possible for a natural if a freaking 18, 19-year-old can squat like 250, 240, whatever the hell I saw. And you look really natural, skinny kid then. So, ollie lifting, yeah, man, I've wondered about this for quite some time. I think ollie lifting is the best form of strength training for me. Powerlifting is annoying to me, like I said in the previous video. I don't agree with a lot of the rules. Everyone lifts differently. The rules don't really encompass anything, man. Like some guys benching like this with his arms freaking, they're moving the bar this much. I thought the sport was about strength, man. I thought the sport was about who's the strongest guy here. When I see that shit, man, it just turns me off completely. Bodybuilding, we all know that there's a limit of how much muscle somebody can hold naturally. So really you're looking at drugs if you want to do bodybuilding. Ollie lifting seems to be exactly what I would love the most. It's about performance. It's about lifting, everyone lifts the bar. You know, the end game is the same. Overhead is where you want the bar. Starts on the floor. Snatch, clean and jerk. Love it. The rules are solid. You can't cheat. Either the weight's up or it's not. So that kind of appeals to me because the whole world's doing the same thing. It's not like powerlifting where somebody's moving the bar like 1 centimeter and someone else is moving it 10 meters. But right now, like at 32 years old with a young family, it's really hard for me to find time coaching and all of that. Like if I was living off of YouTube completely, if YouTube was paying me, you know, then I would have a lot more free time. Then I could maybe go to the gym and pick that up. But right now, I don't have the means to find a coach. And I don't want to teach myself because quick lifts can really, really hurt you. They could really snap your spine. And I don't think it's worth that. Simon Borgard. How long are your rest periods in between sets and how long your workouts in minutes or hours? Usually my workouts are between hour and 2 hours. Lately they've been kind of hour and a half to 2 hours. Rest periods vary between like a minute and 10 minutes. If I'm doing a big squat, those later sets, man, I'm taking 10 minutes between sets, man, like absolutely gutted. So that's kind of the range. I basically just gauge myself on the breathing rate. If my respiration rate comes back down to like some sort of normal level, then I can go back to lifting. The trouble with fast breathing is that your diaphragm, the muscle in your belly that kind of breathes for you, helps the lungs breathe. If that's moving up and down, you can't really stabilize your core. You can't do the Valsalva maneuver because you're starved of oxygen. So there's no point going into another set if you can't stabilize your core. JS asks, do you use caffeine? What is your recovery routine? I rarely drink coffee, man. Maybe this year I've had like 1 coffee and it's like, April now. So I don't really drink coffee. If I'm doing night shifts and I'm really, really struggling to keep my eyes open, I might have a coffee then, but I generally don't use caffeine at all. The reason for that is basically, I don't mind the taste. The taste is okay in terms of coffee, but if you need caffeine to get through a workout, maybe you just need to sleep, man. I think caffeine can mask a lot of your fatigue, and you can trick your body and kind of make it alert through caffeine, but you're really masking the cause of what's happening. So, rest up and then, auto-regulate properly. It's hard to auto-regulate if you got caffeine in, because you're kind of forcing your body to work at a higher level than it's ready. Recovery routine, I just eat and sleep, man. There's nothing else to it. Next to my bed, I've got like a lacrosse ball. I've got that kind of J-looking thing, Theracane, I think it's called. I've got a bunch of like foam rollers. Sometimes, like before bed, I'll just get them out and roll myself out a little bit. But that's about it. I don't do much else. What is your vertical? Pozdrav, brate iz Hrvatske. Pozdrav. Yoga bonito. Vertical, I'm not sure what the vertical is. Like I already said in the previous video, the rim would be like kind of the thumb level. I could comfortably grab it, but it wouldn't be much, I don't think. When did you start weightlifting? What got you into it? I kind of mentioned that already. That's from Mania Fresh. Already spoke about that. Aiden Coleman, what is your vertical again? You noticed you increased your vertical since your journey. Maybe. I probably should have increased my vertical. I just haven't tested. Mao says, what is your goal in terms of 1 rep max number? I reckon you can hit 260 plus. Oh, that's really good, man. I'm hoping 300. Maybe 260 is more applicable, but 300 will be kind of like my lifetime goal. Timothy Roller, do you think the Squat Everyday program is the most beneficial way to build squats? Or does added rest days increase the gains even more? I don't know, man. Like right now, I don't want to jump ship. Right now, I think squatting every day is serving me many other functions, not just the strength gain. Already mentioned a few of those things. But in terms of just like gaining strength, maybe if you did 3-4 days a week would be better than every day. I'm just like infatuated with this intellectually, and that's why I do it. It's always, you can always wonder, is the grass green over the fence? I don't tend to think like that at all. I just work on what's at hand and try and work my puzzle out. Sean Magin, what made you wear all those jerseys, and how many do you have? And how do you have so many? He goes, well, I had about, I think 15 of my own to start off with. And my wife was basically like, what are you doing with all these damn jerseys, man? Like, let's just throw them out. Like, you've kind of outgrown them. You don't really play basketball anymore. And where do you wear jerseys like this anymore? And I was like, no, come on, don't throw that. These are like, precious things for me. And I said, like, just keep them for my son to wear it when he grows up. And then it occurred to me one day I was getting dressed to go to, to the training session to squat. And I thought, why don't I just put one of these jerseys on, man? And in that moment, I kind of realized, bang, maybe I just wear these jerseys. And so I started wearing my own jerseys, and my two best friends were like, also grew up with me and played basketball, and they were like, here, man, take ours as well, because we don't wear them either. So all of a sudden, I had about 30 jerseys, just like overnight like that. And then I just wore them for basically 3, 4, 5 months. And then I started looking around locally here for secondhand jerseys, because right now, like, these jerseys are like $160 from NBA.com. $160. Jesus Christ! Last time I bought a jersey, like a brand new jersey from NBA.com, was like, the jerseys were like $70, $80. Now they're double, man. It's been 10 years. It's just crazy how money just loses value. So yeah, and then I started looking locally here, and I was surprised to see that there was a lot more people like me and my friends, basically, in that 30, 35 range, old and trying to make space in the wardrobe because they've kind of outgrown them. And so if you type in NBA jerseys on Facebook Marketplace, there are so many, man. So I found one guy last week who basically sold me 29 jerseys in one hit, and I bought that off him for $150, man. Like, damn. Was it $150? Yeah, it was $150. Yeah. Oh, no, something like that. $150 to $200. I forget now, because I had another guy as well that I bought jerseys. So I basically bought 40 jerseys in the last 3 weeks. And all of that was like less than $400. So that's a lot of jerseys. That's like $10 a jersey. So I've got 70 jerseys now. I'm gonna leave it there. Just like that, I've become a collector of jerseys. And basically, I was at the brink of throwing mine out, and now I'm collecting them. So that's a cool story. Israel Arambulo. How tall are you? I'm guessing at least 6'3". No, man, I'm 6 foot, maybe 6'1". I'm 184, 85 centimeters. What is the most effective training method for your strength gains? Is it high reps like 20s or doing 3s and 5s? Everything. Everything has a place, man. Absolutely everything has a place. Historically speaking, for me, every time I did high reps, even up to like 50 reps, I've gotten stronger. When I spend too much time doing singles, doubles, and triples, it's good for a little bit. I kind of peak my strength, and then I start losing strength. So I feel like gaining strength happens like in the high rep ranges, like above 10, and peaking is like 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s. That's where you are. But you don't want to spend too much time with those weights. So what I've done, I've taken those two ideas and I do them basically every day. So I make sure I hit a high rep squat, in a warm up, and then I hit some sort of training max. So I still kind of maintain some sort of skill level, still kind of maintain the ability to kind of contract force, maximally, but also I understand that really the real strength gains happen with high reps. RS says general warm up and prehab for lower days and would give out general warm up prehab for lower days. You would give out general advice. High reps, man. Just high reps. Just get your reps in. Get really, really warm. And even my stubborn hip of 6 months of pain, in and out pain, was sorted. Warm up properly, man. Somebody said in the comments that they heard somebody say that the warm up is the workout. The warm up is the workout, man. So just treat it like that. Respect the warm up. Luke H says, what, if any, supplements do you take? I don't take anything, man. I don't take absolutely anything. It's been a good, man, I want to say 10 years since I've taken anything. And when I say anything, I'm talking about like protein powder, whey protein powder. I think I dabbled in creatine once, and then a doctor works said to me, what are you doing? That's not good for you. So right now I haven't taken anything forever. Like for me, protein just makes me feel shit, man. I remember the first time I went to a protein shop, like a supplement store, and the guy says, "Oh, you're a skinny kid," so when I was playing basketball. "Oh, you gotta bulk up just to have like 3 of these a day." Big, massive container of this like white powder, vanilla, I remember it was. Man, now I can't even stand vanilla in ice cream, let alone, it just put me off. So he was like, "Take 2 or 3 scoops of this, have it 3 times a day." And I was like, "Cool, no worries." So I'm doing this, man. I was living off of that. Basically, this stuff was making me so full that I couldn't eat normal food. And people forget, it's called a supplement for a reason. It's supposed to supplement your diet. So if this stuff is impeding on your normal diet, get the hell rid of it. For me, man, it's not worth it. Have a really good meal. Get your carbs, proteins, fats in. Get your macros, and you're good. And when you feel like you want to eat something again, eat again. Don't freaking drink that trash. That's the protein. I don't believe in it. I think it's a scam. I think I've mentioned that in the previous video as well. SD Brahm says, should I work on middle splits if I already have flat feet? Should I work on middle splits if I already have flat feet? I'm scared that middle splits will strengthen the adductors and further enforce the imbalance of weak abductors. All this way create more knee valgus. What are your thoughts? Okay, so having strong adductors doesn't necessarily mean you will have knee valgus. So remember, knee valgus is when you're squatting and your knees come in. What causes that? What causes that kind of traction in? You could think that it's your weak abductors and really strong adductors. I think, interesting question. Should you stretch them? If you have really tight adductors, maybe it's really hard to think about this. Maybe it's really hard for you to keep the glutes firing against a really tight adductor. I don't think it would be bad for you to stretch them, as long as you are squatting ATG as well and you're addressing the strength portion of them. But I'm just trying to think, why would you think that? I think stretching doesn't strengthen anything, unless you're doing PNF stretching or whatever. But predominantly when you stretch muscle, you're elongating it, you're not strengthening them. So if you've got knee valgus and flat feet, I would say that your adductors are probably too tight, not too long. I would also be interested to see what your hip internal rotation is and hip external rotation to see what's causing what. But no, I don't think stretching your adductors is going to make your knee valgus and your flat feet worse. And then we've got a long one here from Koriskov. So far you've been pushing through the pain and have been adjusting your exercise and routines around the strain and wear on your body very intelligently. You've done a terrific job at avoiding injury while still hitting your daily goals. I'm just curious about the impact this endeavor has had on your overall conditioning. With constant top percentile effort, would you say that daily constant strain and effort is an ideal method to improve your grit and resistance conditioning, as opposed to an approach that's always factoring in periods of rest and inactivity? In your experience after all of this, is the human body designed for daily rigor and wear? What kind of benefits and detriments have you experienced from mental and physical dedication to rigorous daily training? Okay. In your experience after all of this, is the human body designed for daily rigor and wear? I think the bodybuilding industry has completely changed the way we think about human performance. It's all about smashing yourself and then being inactive for 3 days, smashing yourself, then being inactive for 3 days, smashing yourself in terms of muscle groups, right? You do your back and biceps, you don't touch back and biceps for another 4 or 5 days, or even 7 days. I think it is far more intelligent in terms of natural human being. I'm not talking about steroids. Steroid changes everything. I'm talking about a natural guy who's thinking about performance in everyday life. I think it's much more beneficial for you to take small steps every day than massive steps every other day. So if you think about it, never in our history did we just have death, smashing ourselves to death, and then having periods of inactivity. We're always kind of working on the farms, working on the field, working on whatever. Some of the toughest people that we know of in our families, just not training people, are the people who have had hard, laborious lives. So I believe in just like working every day, like Bruce Lee says, running water never goes stale. Rather than like smashing yourself to a pulp and then trying to recover from that. So if you're thinking about it, a graph, I like small deflections, small kind of oscillations, rather than massive ones and then a long period of inactivity to kind of catch up to that. I think it's better mentally as well. I remember when I used to do leg day once a week, I used to dread it. I used to get anxiety because I know for the following 2 or 3 days I'm going to be sore, I'm going to have trouble sitting on the toilet. So it's too emotionally up and down. With this, I feel like I'm always kind of like near the flat line. I'm never overreaching. I'm always kind of working to stimulate rather than annihilate. That's another little term that I've kind of thought about. So I think the human body best functions when it's not challenged to death every single day, where it's kind of like slowly being encouraged to improve. What kind of benefits and detriments have you experienced from the mental and physical dedication rigorous training? Mentally, I feel like I'm tough. Mentally, I feel proud that I have dedicated so much time. I feel like I'm a strong human being because I've basically proved to myself that I have the discipline, I have the dedication to apply myself to a craft. So if something comes up in my life, a challenge, I already have a track record that basically speaks for itself. I've squatted for 500 days in a row, man. That's something, man. What have you done for 500 days in a row? If you even think about like try playing a video game for 5 days in a row, 6 days in a row, it's hard. Dedication is hard, discipline is hard. And I hope like I not just teach you guys, but teach my kids, that with persistence and dedication and discipline, good things can come out. It doesn't really matter what the discipline is you choose. It doesn't really matter what it is in life. If you devote this much time to any craft, you're going to be pretty good at it. Even a monkey would learn something if he just dedicated itself every single day. But it has to come from love. You have to love something. So for me, this never felt like work. This felt like I'm just having fun. I'm spending time doing my hobby. That's how I kind of thought about it. The detriments, you lose time, I guess. You lose time to it. But that's a detriment. But how else are you gonna do anything in life without losing some time for it? Rigorous daily training. I guess it's rigorous, but for me, it's always kind of like thinking about I stimulate rather than annihilate. So I'm never thinking about that I'm killing myself doing this. Hope I've answered your question, man. Appreciate the long comment as well, man. Daniel Noah says, I don't think you have answered this before, but pardon me if you have. Have you ever discussed on camera your choice in footwear? How you feel the chucks shape your squat and how that might change if you were squatting weightlifting shoes? And why did you choose chucks over weightlifting shoes? Thanks, man. Love your channel. Been doing 250 lunges every squat routine. I'm loving it. Respect, man. Well done, Daniel. Footwear. So, I like minimalism in a lot of different fields, man. Footwear is another one. I don't like really supported footwear. I'll tell you a story. When I was under 18 playing basketball, there was a few guys that went down with rolled ankles. And the coach basically implemented a rule that no one can play a game if we didn't wear ankle braces. So we all went shopping and bought ankle braces. And so I played a whole season with ankle braces when I was 18 years old. Before then, I used to roll my ankle, whatever, and just walk it off. Kind of like LeBron. You see LeBron do it, just tighten up your shirt a bit more and go for it. I never really had time off because of a rolled ankle. Then I started wearing ankle braces all the time, training 3 days a week, 2 days a week, and play once a week. And what the interesting thing is that guys were rolling their ankles even more. The rate of ankle rolls went even more. Why is that? Over time, I realized that if you immobilize a joint, if you support it completely, just do all the work for it, that's great. You might seem like you are ensuring that you don't get injured. But what you're doing there is you're deactivating the structures within that joint, which will be stabilizing the joint naturally without the support. So now you put this like tight wrap around your joint, and you've deactivated those muscles and those little ligaments and tendons from working. So they just get relaxed. And over time, they atrophy. They completely lose tone and shape and strength. And then you start basically having really, really weak joints, even while supported by the support system that you have. So then you have to add a bit more support, tighten a bit harder. I remember after that season, my ankles felt like so sensitive. Like I'd be walking around the house, going for jogs or whatever, and I'd feel weak in my ankles. It wasn't until I started kind of getting rid of, like when I moved on from that coach and I kind of, started not wearing ankle braces, I started feeling better and better and stronger, and then I started feeling better, basically. So in the same way, your feet, so I've got Romaleos 2s, Nike Romaleos. I basically wore them for a good period of time, like a year and a half to 2 years. I started wearing them all the time. And what I started feeling was the same thing. That's just so supportive. Your whole foot is just snug and you can tighten the hell out of it and it's great and your heel's elevated. Your foot is basically dead. You basically just completely deactivate your whole foot because nothing has to work because it's just locked in. Around that time, I was still playing basketball. This is like seven years ago. That's when I rolled my ankles. One ankle 1 year and then another a year later. And both I had 6 to 7 weeks off. 6 to 10 weeks off or something like this. I had to wear a moon boot. Completely like tore 3 ligaments in my left ankle 1 year. And then the following year I rolled my ankle again and I fractured my 5th base metatarsal. I think that's what I fractured. Base of 5th metatarsal. So the reason why I don't choose to wear all these shoes is because I don't like that feeling. Basically, it just makes you feel weak. Or your whole foot falls asleep. Now, if you were to squat and deadlift bare feet, so now the whole foot, everything is working how it's designed to. You're getting feedback. You know exactly what's going on. When you roll your ankle, when you pronate your ankle, you feel it. But with all these shoes, because everything's so tight, you don't really know. You can't feel anything. So I like minimalistic shoes because I also want the foot musculature to strengthen as everything else strengthens. That's kind of like a spiel about why I believe what it is, why I believe what I believe. What else did you say? Chucks. Yeah. So, and also around the time when my hips started hurting, when I got out of all these shoes and I went to flats, my hips started feeling better. And that's kind of was the transition point. I was like, okay, I feel better in flats, and that was it. But what I noticed after the flats was when I started wearing the flats, I started feeling better with my feet. And also just wearing all these shoes around for like 2 hours in the gym, you just clacker. It's uncomfortable, man. Just with chucks, you just feel like your bare feet are your feet can breathe and it just feels better. So that's that. Blake Campbell, for your deadlift, do you think the grip is your limiting factor? Do you train grip? Do you want to train grip? So I guess, I don't really train my grip directly. I can hook grip. I can basically hook grip anything. I haven't had a lot of practice recently, but previously I could basically hook grip 250, 270 kilos on the rack pull and think nothing of it. If I get some chalk on it, my grip is potentially really strong if I just hook grip. In terms of under and over, probably very limited because I don't train that. Do you front squat? Do you think it can help you improve? Yeah, so front squatting I did a bit of a block, I guess, if you will, probably 6 months ago. It was good. I enjoyed it. Really challenges my upper back. That's kind of the biggest limiting factor for me with the front squats. It's not so much the leg power, it's up here, man. Like, it just falls me over. And because of my legs could always kind of push more, I always felt like the rounding of my spine was kind of a limiting factor. And then my shoulder started hurting, my right shoulder started hurting from all that external rotation, and also thoracic kyphosis because of the bar. So ultimately I stopped because of the shoulder pain. It was just too painful at the end. But I think as a place, I should really get back to it and you know, give it another go. But the bar takes a bit of time to kind of condition your collarbones for the front rack position, but otherwise it's pretty good. All right, guys, I don't know how long that video is right now, but a couple more questions answered. So, man, there's a lot more left. I'm just scrolling down. There's a lot more questions left. Maybe I'll do another one in a few more days' time, trying to get to all the questions. There's no point making another announcement about another Q&A because there's so much here. So I'll just fight through all of these and try and get through them. I'm putting love hearts to all the questions that I've answered. So that's just my way of kind of seeing and monitoring how many more questions there is to go. But anyway, it's probably a really long video like the last one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully I answered your question. If I haven't, I'll try and get to it in the future. All right, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Oh, and I'll upload today's workout a bit later. Cheers, guys. Peace out.